The bonding fire. Derek finally found his voice, though it came out rougher than intended. Zyphira, I don't. What are you talking about? Flame touch. She moved deeper into the room, her movements precise despite the obvious tension in her frame. For a moment, she simply stood there, and Derek noticed something he'd never seen before. Her hands were trembling slightly at her sides. Among my people, she began, her accent thickening with emotion, there exists a phenomenon we call the flame touch. It is rare, sacred, and completely beyond our control. She turned to face him fully, and in the dim light of his quarters, he could see faint patterns glowing beneath her skin, bioluminescent marks that traced along her neck and disappeared beneath her armor. When a Kirati warrior fights beside someone whose courage, whose spirit, resonates with theirs at a fundamental level, something awakens. A connection. A bond that burns like fire in our chest. Derek's heart was pounding now. And you felt this, with me? Yes. The word came out like a confession. In the middle of the battle, when you held the line even when your forces were breaking. When you stood between my warriors and that artillery strike, even though you had no obligation to protect us. Her violet eyes met his, burning with an intensity that made his breath catch. I felt it ignite. And now. She pressed her hand harder against her chest. Now it will not stop. It grows stronger with every moment we remain unresolved. Unresolved. Derek took a step closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. What does that mean? Zyphira's jaw tightened. The flame touch must be acknowledged. Confronted. Before dawn, the bond must be either accepted or rejected by both parties. If it is ignored. She looked away, and Derek saw the proud warrior struggling with vulnerability. The pain becomes unbearable. Physical. Psychological. It has driven some of my people to madness. The weight of her words settled over Derek like a heavy cloak. So you came here because you had to. Not because you wanted to. No. She turned back sharply, and suddenly she was closer. Close enough that he could see the subtle patterns of darker bronze that traced across her skin like tiger stripes. You misunderstand. I came because I must know the truth of what I feel. Because standing on that battlefield, watching you fight with everything you had, I felt something I have never felt before. And it terrifies me. Derek's throat went dry. Terrifies you? I am Commander Zyphira Calven. I have led armies. I have conquered worlds. I show no weakness, no hesitation, no fear. Her voice dropped lower, almost breaking. But tonight, human, you have unmade me with your courage. And I do not know how to bear it. The silence stretched between them, charged with unspoken emotion. Derek realized his own hands were shaking now. Because he understood, perhaps had understood from the moment she'd walked through his door. The pull he'd felt toward her wasn't just respect or admiration. On that battlefield, when she'd fought beside him, when their eyes had met across the chaos and something had passed between them like lightning. I felt it too, he whispered. Zyphira's eyes widened, the glow beneath her skin brightening. You, humans don't have the flame touch. How could you? Maybe we don't have a name for it. Derek took another step closer, and now they were barely an arm's length apart. Maybe we don't have glowing marks or ancient traditions. But I felt something today, Zyphira. When you saved my soldiers from that collapsing bunker. When you looked at me like you could see straight through all my armor, all my ranks and titles, down to who I really am. He swallowed hard. I can't stop thinking about you. She was breathing harder now, her chest rising and falling beneath the armor. This is forbidden. Your people and mine, we are allies only by necessity. If our superiors knew. I don't care. The words came out before Derek could stop them, but he didn't take them back. Because they were true. Standing here, looking into those violet eyes, feeling the magnetic pull between them, nothing else seemed to matter. Zyphira reached up slowly, her hand hovering near Derek's face but not quite touching. If we do this, if we acknowledge the bond, there is no going back. The flame touch, once accepted, marks us both. Forever. Derek's heart hammered against his ribs. Show me. Walls coming down. Zyphira's hand finally made contact with Derek's cheek, and the moment her skin touched his, he gasped. It was like nothing he'd ever felt, warmth that spread through him like liquid fire, not painful but intensely alive. The bioluminescent marks on her skin flared brighter, and he watched in amazement as similar patterns began to shimmer faintly across her exposed collarbone. This is the beginning, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. The mark of recognition. Derek lifted his own hand, hesitating only a moment before touching the glowing patterns on her neck. Her skin was warm, impossibly soft despite her warrior's nature, and she shivered at his touch. Does it hurt? No. Her eyes fluttered closed. It feels like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. They stood like that for a long moment, simply touching, exploring this impossible connection. Then Zyphira opened her eyes, and Derek saw tears glistening there, the first crack in her impenetrable warrior's facade. I have never allowed anyone to see me like this, she said quietly. Vulnerable. Uncertain. Among my people, to show weakness is to invite death. I became commander because I was harder than stone, colder than ice. I never faltered. Never doubted. Her voice broke slightly. Until tonight. Until you. Derek's chest tightened. You think this is weakness? I don't know what else to call it. She blinked, and a single tear traced down her bronze cheek. I am trained to feel nothing but purpose. To want nothing but victory. Yet here I stand, trembling because a human soldier looked at me like I was more than a weapon. Without thinking, Derek pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her powerful frame. For a heartbeat, she went rigid with surprise, then slowly, carefully, she returned the embrace. Her forehead came to rest against his, and they breathed together in the silence. Do you know what I see when I look at you? Derek murmured. Not a weapon. Not just a warrior. I see someone who carries impossible weight and never asks for help. Someone who leads from the front because she can't bear to send others where she won't go. Someone who's so strong that she's forgotten it's okay to be afraid. Zyphira's arms tightened around him. You barely know me. Maybe. But I recognize you. I recognize that loneliness. That pressure. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. I've commanded troops for 8 years. Every decision I make, lives hang in the balance. Every mistake costs someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. And I have to stand there and make those calls with a steady hand and a clear voice, because that's what commanders do. Even when I'm breaking inside. Something shifted in her expression, recognition, understanding, connection. The weight of command. Yes. Derek's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb gently wiping away the tear track on her cheek. Maybe that's what the flame touch really is. Not magic or mystery, but two people who understand what the other carries. Who see past the armor to the person underneath. Derek. His name on her lips sent electricity down his spine. She rarely used given names. Kirati culture emphasized titles and honors. But here, now, she was simply Zyphira, and he was simply Derek. She reached up slowly, her fingers finding the clasps of her shoulder armor. The pieces came away with soft clicks, revealing more of the bronze skin beneath, more of the glowing patterns that seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. It was a gesture of profound trust among her people. Removing armor meant accepting absolute vulnerability. Derek's breath caught as she set the pieces aside. The patterns traced down her shoulders, across her collarbones, and he could see them continuing beneath her form-fitting undersuit. Without thinking, his fingers traced one of the lines, following it from her shoulder down toward her heart. Zyphira's eyes darkened with something that wasn't just emotion anymore. Her hand caught his, holding it against her chest where he could feel her heart racing. If we continue, she said, her voice low and husky, the bond will complete. We will be marked permanently. My people will know. Your people will question. Everything will change. Derek looked into those violet eyes, at this incredible woman who'd faced armies without flinching but trembled at the possibility of connection. He thought about duty, about regulations, about the 1,000 reasons this was complicated and dangerous and impossible. Then he kissed her. The ultimatum. The shuttle descended through Celander's prismatic atmosphere, refracting starlight into ribbons of color that danced across the viewport. Captain Darren Vasquez gripped the armrest, his dress uniform suddenly feeling too tight. 3 months of hyperspace travel for a negotiation that might end in humanity's extinction. No pressure. We're approaching the Sovereign's landing platform, the pilot announced, her voice crackling through the comm. Darren studied the world below. The capital city spiraled outward from a central palace that looked like frozen lightning, spires of translucent crystal that pulsed within a light. The Caliph Empire's seat of power. Beautiful and utterly alien. The shuttle touched down with barely a whisper. The loading ramp descended, and humid air rushed in, carrying scents he couldn't name, something between ozone and jasmine. 2 Caliph guards waited at attention, their skin bearing subtle patterns that shifted like oil on water, their formal armor adorned with geometric designs that seemed to move. Captain Vasquez. The taller guard's voice resonated like a struck bell. The Sovereign awaits. They led him through corridors where walls weren't quite solid, showing glimpses of gardens and starscapes beyond. Other Caliph passed, courtiers in flowing garments that defied gravity, their eyes reflecting light with colors not found in human irises. The throne room doors opened silently. Sovereign Lyssa Theron sat upon a seat that grew from the floor itself, crystalline branches cradling her form. She wore deep violet robes that seemed woven from twilight, and her dark hair was adorned with silver threads that caught the light. Her features were delicate yet commanding, her expression unreadable. Darren bowed. Sovereign Theron. I come bearing humanity's hopes for peace. Peace. She descended the dais with fluid grace, circling him slowly. An interesting word, Captain. Do you know what my seers tell me? That Celander's sun grows unstable. That our empire faces collapse within a generation. She stopped before him, close enough that he could see flecks of gold in her amber eyes. An ancient prophecy offers one salvation, a union between our throne and a leader whose spirit cannot be broken by fear or ambition. His heart hammered. I don't understand. Her lips curved, not quite a smile. I'm offering you a choice, Darren Vasquez. Become my consort, bind our peoples together. She leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear. Or prepare your worlds for war. The silence stretched between them like a vast gulf. You're serious. Completely. She stepped back, studying him with those unsettling eyes. I've reviewed every human leader. You're the only one the prophecy might accept. You've refused promotions that would have meant compromising your principles. You've led without cruelty. You've shown mercy even to enemies. This is insane, he breathed. Perhaps. Something flickered in her expression. Was it loneliness? But it's also our reality. I'm giving you 3 days to decide. Explore the palace. Ask your questions. But know this, her voice hardened. I will do whatever necessary to save my people. Even if it means destroying yours. She swept from the room, leaving him standing alone in that crystalline space, the weight of 2 civilizations settling onto his shoulders. A guard touched his arm gently. Come. We'll show you to your quarters. As Darren followed, his mind raced. This wasn't negotiation, it was checkmate. But something in Lyssa's eyes haunted him, a depth of feeling beneath her imperial mask. What kind of ruler would make such a desperate gambit? And why did part of him want to understand her rather than simply refuse? The crystal corridors seemed to narrow around him as the first day of his impossible choice began. Behind the crown. The palace quarters were a cage of wonders. Walls shifted from opaque to transparent at Darren's touch, revealing gardens where plants hummed with bioluminescence. He'd barely slept, his mind churning through impossible scenarios. Marry an alien empress or condemn billions to war. Some choice. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door dissolved, revealing not a guard but Lyssa herself, dressed simply in flowing silver, almost human-like casual wear, if not for the way the fabric seemed to breathe. May I enter? Her formality seemed cautious, different from yesterday's imperial certainty. It's your palace. But your sanctuary, for now. She stepped inside, and the door reformed behind her. I thought you might have questions. Real ones, not the political dance we'd perform with advisors present. Darren studied her. In this light, she looked younger, more uncertain. Why me? There are diplomats, politicians, people trained for arranged marriages to save civilizations. A wry smile touched her lips. The prophecy is specific. It speaks of one who leads without seeking dominion, who values truth over comfort. Your record spoke for itself. The miners you refused to abandon on Kepler 442. The ceasefire you brokered on Proxima Station when your superiors wanted blood. You've done your research. I've done nothing but research for 2 years. She moved to the window, gazing at the city below. Do you know what it's like, Captain? To know your entire civilization depends on a decision written in ancient texts you're not even sure you believe in. He approached, standing beside her. You don't believe the prophecy. I believe our sun is dying. I believe our scientists say the stellar collapse is tied to quantum fluctuations in the planet's core, somehow connected to the emotional resonance of our people. It sounds like mysticism, but the data doesn't lie. She turned to him, vulnerability cracking through her composure. And I believe I've sacrificed everything for my throne. My friendships. My privacy. Any chance at choosing my own path. So you're forcing me into the same sacrifice. Pain flashed in her eyes. Yes. And I hate myself for it. The admission hung between them. Darren felt his anger softening, replaced by something more dangerous, empathy. Show me, he said quietly. Show me your world. Not the throne room politics. The real cylinder. Her expression shifted, surprise, then something like hope. Come with me. She led him through hidden passages, away from the courtiers and guards, to a private observatory garden atop the palace's highest tower. Here, massive flowers bloomed in the twilight, their petals translucent and veined with light. The sky above was a river of stars. This is where I come when the crown becomes too heavy, Lissa said, settling onto a bench carved from living wood. The gardeners engineered these flowers to bloom in harmony with emotional frequencies. Watch. She placed her hand near a closed bud. It unfurled slowly, glowing soft blue, the color of melancholy. What does mine show? Darren asked, touching another bloom. It opened to amber and gold, with threads of crimson. Lissa's breath caught. Conflict. Duty warring with curiosity. She met his gaze. You're intrigued by me. I'm trying to understand you. There's a difference. Is there? She stood, closing the distance between them. Because I'm trying to understand why a human captain makes my heart race in a way nothing has for years. Why your presence feels like the first genuine thing in my life since I took the throne. Darren's pulse quickened. This close, he could see the intricate patterns in her skin, subtle as watermarks, beautiful in their strangeness. Lissa. I'm not asking you to love me, she whispered. I'm not even asking you to like me. But perhaps we could choose to understand each other. To make this impossible situation something bearable. Her hand lifted, hovering near his face, asking permission. He nodded, and she traced his jawline with careful fingers, wonder in her expression. You're warm, she murmured. Our people run cooler. It's pleasant. He caught her hand gently, feeling the delicate bones, the pulse that beat faster than human. This doesn't change the impossibility of it all. No, she agreed. But it makes the next 2 days less lonely. They stood in the garden as the flowers bloomed around them in colors neither could name, 2 leaders caught in destiny's web, beginning to wonder if the threads might hold something besides obligation. Shadows and schemes. The second day brought complications. Darren woke to urgent knocking. His assigned attendant, a young caliph named Vess, entered with unusual agitation. Captain, you must dress quickly. The High Chancellor requests your presence at the morning council. I thought I wasn't part of political meetings yet. You aren't. which makes this irregular. The council chamber was smaller than the throne room but no less impressive, with a circular table that displayed holographic star charts. 5 Caliph officials stood as he entered, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. At the table's head sat High Chancellor Miren Kai, his silver hair swept back, his robes bearing the elaborate insignia of his office. Captain Vasquez. Miren's smile didn't reach his eyes. We thought it prudent to discuss the situation before you make your decision. The Sovereign and I have been discussing it. Have you? Miren gestured to a seat. Tell me, has she mentioned the binding ritual's true cost? That once performed, it cannot be undone? That you would be forever altered, your lifespan extended to match ours, 2 centuries of service to a throne that may not even want you? Darren remained standing. Lissa has been honest with me. Has she told you about her previous suitor, Lord Ken, who she rejected so thoroughly he took his own life? Murmurs rippled through the council. Our sovereign has a history of cold decisions, Captain. Don't mistake political necessity for genuine feeling. Anger flared in Darren's chest. Why are you telling me this? Because I care for my empire's future more than one woman's pride. Miren stood, moving closer. Refuse her, Captain. Let our people prepare for honorable war rather than a mockery of a union. Some things are worse than conflict. And what do you gain from war, Chancellor? The room went silent. Miren's expression froze. Excuse me. It's a simple question. The Sovereign seems desperate to avoid conflict. You seem eager to push me toward refusal. Why? How dare you? That's enough. Lissa's voice cut through the tension as she entered, her bearing pure imperial authority. Chancellor, this council was not authorized. Captain Vasquez is my guest, not yours to interrogate. Miren bowed stiffly. I was merely ensuring he understood the full implications, Sovereign. What he understands is his concern, not yours. All of you, dismissed. The officials filed out, Miren's gaze lingering on Darren with something like threat. When they were alone, Lissa's shoulders sagged slightly. I'm sorry. Miren has been difficult lately. He told me about Lord Ken. She flinched. Ken was a political arrangement I refused because I wouldn't trap someone in a loveless bond. He couldn't accept the rejection, and I've carried that guilt ever since. Her eyes met his. I'm giving you a choice, Darren. It's a terrible choice, but it's still yours. I will never force your heart. I believe you. And strangely, he did. But I think your Chancellor wants me to refuse. Why would he? Understanding dawned on her face, followed by fear. If war comes, the Council would need emergency powers. Miren has always believed he could rule better than I could. We need proof. And how do we get that without tipping our hand? Darren thought quickly. Tonight's ceremonial banquet, you mentioned its tradition before the final decision. What if we act as though I'm leaning toward acceptance? Make Miren desperate enough to move prematurely. Lissa studied him with newfound respect. You're suggesting we use ourselves as bait. I'm suggesting we smoke out a traitor before he destroys everything you're trying to save. She reached out, taking his hand in hers. The gesture felt natural now, comfortable. This isn't your fight, Darren. You could refuse, go home to safety. And let a good ruler get overthrown by a schemer. Not my style. He squeezed her hand gently. Besides, I'm starting to think your empire might be worth saving. Her smile was genuine, reaching her eyes. And it's sovereign. Still deciding on that part. She laughed, the sound like crystal bells. Fair enough. Tonight then. We play our parts and see who takes the bait. The banquet hall glittered with 1,000 suspended lights, and Caliph nobles in their finest watched as Darren and Lissa entered together. He wore formal human attire modified with Caliph designs, a bridge between worlds. She'd chosen a gown of deep emerald that caught the light like dragon scales, her hand resting lightly on his arm. They played their roles perfectly, intimate glances, whispered conversations, the appearance of a couple falling into genuine affection. Which wasn't entirely acting anymore, Darren realized with a start. Somewhere between arguments and flower gardens, something real had begun growing. The attack came during the third course. A server moved too quickly, blade flashing toward Lissa's throat. Darren reacted on instinct, pulling her aside as he caught the assassin's wrist. They went down together, chaos erupting as guards rushed forward.